Welcome back, fellow travelers. Today finds us in Columbus, Georgia, right across the Chattahoochee River from my hometown of Phoenix City, Alabama. And we are at the National Civil War Naval Museum. Now, actually, this is not a government-funded museum. It is a privately funded museum. But it is chock full of really, really cool stuff. So we're going to take a look at some of it. Now, if you remember when we were in Vicksburg, how excited I was to be seeing my first ironclad. And that was a real treat for me. But here at the Civil War Naval Museum, they actually have a replica of an ironclad built here. Now this is the CSS Albemarle, and I'll tell you a little bit about it in just a minute. But one of the really cool things here, for me at least, is that right here at this opening, at this entrance that they've cut in, and we're going to go in just a minute, but this entrance that they've cut in, all of these plates that you see right here, those are actual plates from the CSS Jackson ironclad. So that's really cool. That's actual armor that was that covered the CSS Jackson in the Civil War. Now, the Albemarle, it says here, I'm going to read you some of the stuff here. It says, as you enter the vessel, notice how it's constructed. This is typical of casemated ironclads. Through the entryway, though the entryway would not be present on the ship, so this is just for cut in for the museum, so for us to go in. It demonstrates the typical assembly of the casemate with 2 feet of wood, which is a combination of oak and pine. On top of the 2 layers of 2-inch iron plating. Please note the iron plates on either side of the entryway are real plates from the CSS Jackson. The entire structure, this upper part, slopes at 35 degrees. This allowed projectiles to bounce off easier, and it reduced the weight of the ship. Now, when we go in there, the floor is lowered because people at that time were shorter than most people today. You can see how cramped a crew of 120 men would be on this ironclad. On a mild day, the temperature inside would range from 120 to 130 degrees. Now, this particular ship, this replica, the actual ship of it is the, like I said, the CSS Albemarle, and it says, through the summer of 1864, the U.S. Navy, so the Union Navy, considered various ways to destroy her. Lieutenant William B. Cushing volunteered to use torpedo boats, and he was authorized to proceed with the attempt. Now, you might think, oh wow, they had torpedoes. But see, the torpedoes at that time were not the torpedoes that we think of today. They were basically just bombs, and they would either float in the water, or they would be anchored in the water, or they would be put out on a big boom out in front of the ship. They weren't, they didn't go in the water and go toward the ship, okay? Now, it said, on the night of October 27th, 1864, Cushing and his team made their assault. As they approached the Albemarle at dock, they were spotted and came under heavy rifle and pistol fire from both shore and ship. As they closed with the ironclad, they discovered that she was defended against approach by floating log booms. So basically they had like a whole ring of floating logs around it so that boats couldn't get in. Cushing called for full steam ahead. The boat's velocity carried it up and over the barrier. Placing the spar, or the ram that had the torpedo on it, against the ironclad's hull, Cushing stood up on the bow and pulled the lanyard. So he pulled the mechanism to detonate the torpedo. He detonated it just as the Albemarle's forward cannon fired. His boat, Cushing's boat, was swamped. And he called for men to save themselves, and he jumped overboard and hid until daylight. But he wasn't sure if he had been successful in sinking the Albemarle. Later, a passing black man confirmed that the Albemarle had sunk, and Cushing found a skiff and paddled back to his fleet, and was basically a national hero because of this. Because, the Confederates were the first ones with the ironclads, and the ironclads were really, really devastating to the wood-sided ships, because they had these cannons, and I think we have one right here. So if you can see that, they had those cannons that would fire great big holes into the wood ships, but the wood ships, most of their cannon shot would just bounce off. And look at the size of this anchor here. I'm actually going to get my son to stand over toward the anchor so you can see how big it is. Go stand by that anchor. So Sean is 6 feet 1 inches tall, and he's standing probably about 3 feet away from the anchor. So you can see how big it was. And here we have a grind wheel. See, inside this the place that we're in, they actually have a dockyard, kind of mocked up. So you have all these. You can see. Look at that. There's the Southern Gold. That's cotton right there. And now, some of you may know, some of the woodside ships actually would put bales of cotton around their decks to act as more armor, because it would help stop the cannon. And we have a nice grinding stone here, right there. And this is really interesting because I had forgotten this little piece of trivia, and I was just reminded of it. Right here we see it's called ephemera, or just basically miscellaneous stuff. But this is the cool one right here. See this book right here? This book it's called the Alabama Kearsarge Book. And one of the most famous naval duels of the Civil War took place in the English Channel, so in the waterway between England and France, near Cherbourg, France, between the CSS Alabama and the U.S. Navy warship Kearsarge. And this book was written soon after the battle by an Englishman who interviewed many of the battle's participants. So that's really cool that, we think the Civil War, it happened along the Atlantic shores and the Gulf Coast, and then all through, the North and South at the time, but it actually, was international in its implication and in its actual execution. You see some naval sea bags there, and here, of course, you guys know how I like weaponry, so we got some actual weaponry, including this really cool battle axe, right? Did I put it? Yep. Did I get it? Yep, there it is. Yeah, really cool battle axe there. And I believe it said it's one of 411 captured by the Confederates when the Gosport Navy Yard in Virginia was abandoned. So let's take a walk inside the Albemarle here. Now, again, I said Sean was 6 feet tall, 6'1", and you can see how he's just a little bit shorter than the doorway there.
And these are lowered.
And these floors have been lowered, so it would have been much shorter. But you have to understand that the average height of people at that time was probably about 5'5" for men, 5'5", 5'6". Here we have the inside of the ship with the cannon. There's the cannon. What a beauty. One day I want to own a cannon. Why? Just because I want to. So think about it. 120 men in these cramped quarters. And here you have the ramrods and everything for the cannon and the shot. Right here, these would have been the cannon shells. And we have a display of a couple of sabers there for when someone was trying to board you. They would have to fight hand to hand. Now, there's a lot of great stuff in here. I'm going to walk really quickly through this part, and then I want to take you to something really, really cool. Okay? So, this is actually the coat and saber of Catesby Ap R. Jones, who was the captain of the Merrimac, which was the first ironclad. It was actually the Merrimac when it was a Union ship, but when the shipyard was being overrun, the Union scuttled it, so they thought the Confederates couldn't get it. But then the Confederates raised it and turned it into the ironclad CSS Virginia. So this is his actual coat and saber. And then right up here, and of course you see all the different U.S. and Confederate flags that are flying here. Now this flag is huge. Look at this. This flag is huge. That's the flag of the the CSS Alabama, right there. And here, this is a model of the CSS Alabama ironclad. And once they started building ironclads, they built as many of them as they could. As I told you, I think I told you in Vicksburg, Eads in the north actually commissioned 100. They commissioned 7 ironclads built in 100 days. It took 2 shipyards to do it, but they got it done. And one of those was the USS Cairo that we saw. This is the jacket and vest of the assistant surgeon of the U.S. Navy. And over here we have some sailor uniforms from the U.S. Navy, right here, along with some weaponry. Now, this is really cool. Look at this. This is a mock-up of the USS Hartford. Excuse me, Hartman. No, it's the Hartford, USS Hartford. And here you have one of the lifeboats right here. And you have the ship's bell. And this type of ship was called a cutter. And again, we're going to walk in here and check this out. You got your stores, right? And here you have seamen's quarters. You see the hammocks. By the way, if you've never slept on a hammock, it's so good. Especially if you were on a boat, it'd be rocking. It's so nice. Got some tools here. And another collection of sabers. Here we have the captain's dining mess. This is really cool, guys. I really wish you could be here with me and see this. This is the captain's quarters here. But just being this close to history is so cool. Even if it's a mock-up, it's very cool.
I can show you.
Yeah, we're over there. So this is a mock-up of the CSS Virginia right here. And I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to let you see the size of these flags that we just went by. And that flag of the CSS Atlanta That thing must be 20 feet long.
Alabama.
Huh? The Atlanta, excuse me. The CSS Atlanta. And here we have another model showing you how the ironclads look and were built. And some really cool cannon. And this would have been a mine. This is what a torpedo would look like. This was a floating torpedo. So really, really cool. Sorry, I know my camera work's not awesome. I'm doing this on my cell phone and, in selfie mode. So I have to whenever I'm showing you things, I'm not actually seeing what I'm showing you because I have to turn the phone around. Oh, yeah. But I want to take you guys over here really quickly. I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but I want to show you like the main attraction of this museum. And that is right over here. First of all, check this out. Look at this. This is an actual ship. This is I think this is the CSS Chattahoochee, isn't it? I think this is the CSS Chattahoochee. Yeah, the CSS Chattahoochee that was recovered near Columbus, Georgia, right on the Chattahoochee River. You have some of the tools and implements here, and you can see how the construction was. Look at these nails and spikes and things. Very cool. And then this is the Confederate States Ram Jackson, and it was an ironclad. And look at that. Now, of course, we just have the bottom hull, and this framework up top is what the upper deck, what the casemate would have looked like. And that's really cool. And I'm going to show you guys, they have some Civil War photos here. And they have some actual letters from George S. Paul. These are actual letters that he wrote to his family. Along with some drafting tools. But let's take a look at this. Look at the size of this propeller. Look, this is the propeller with my big head next to it. Right? That's a good sized propeller right there. Look at the size of these timbers that it's constructed with. And these iron fittings. Right? And this is the stern of the ship. And here we have other pieces from the ship. Right? And we have a little animation here that shows you how the ship was constructed. And see those iron plates that are going on right there? There they are right there. Those iron plates right there. And these are the big spikes that held them on. Right there. And to think that I'm standing here, I'm walking here in the middle of 2021, and I'm standing 5 feet away from 140 something years of history, no, 160 years of history right here. And again, I'll show you a little bit more of the ship here, right there. So that's what's left of the ship. That and that part there.
There's a mirror up there.
There's a what?
A mirror. It shows the bottom of
A
it.
mirror that shows the bottom?
And it shows the cotton and the joints.
Oh, hold on one second. There might be something I can show you here. Oh, what a great idea. They've got a mirror here that you can see underneath the ship, so let's see if I can let you see that.
Yeah.
Can you see that? Here, let's see. There it is. All right. So that's the underneath of the ship there. So just a really cool experience. And, believe me, I understand that not everybody gets as jacked up about history as I do, being a history teacher and all, but I've always loved history. And as horrible and awful and wasteful as the Civil War was, it's always fascinated me. Warfare in general. My son Ben, we were talking while we were at Andersonville, and he said, Dad, I hate war. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And I said, you are absolutely right. It doesn't make any sense. But from the time of Cain and Abel, warfare has been a part of the human experience. And, some wars are wasteful. Well, all wars are wasteful, because anytime you have people killing people and destroying things, that's just wasteful. But sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes what you believe in, and it could be the wrong thing, by the way. You could be, supporting the wrong ideals. And by the way, that concept of wrong ideals sometimes depends on which side you're on. But sometimes it's necessary in order to protect what you value, your ideals, your property, your culture, your custom. And sometimes we choose to fight wars that in one way make sense, and in one way are, I don't want to say honorable, but they're necessary, but we choose the wrong thing to fight about. For the Civil War, a lot of people say the Civil War wasn't about slavery. Yes, it was. It was about slavery. It wasn't just about slavery, but slavery was one of the main causes. And the reason for that was because the South at that time was very prosperous. But because it relied on slave labor, if slavery were outlawed and they had to start paying all that labor, it would very much put a dent in the Southern economy, along with the tariffs that the North wanted, because the South would send its cotton to England, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, to England and France. And because England is where the Industrial Revolution started, they had a lot of textile factories, and then they would ship their finished product to the colonies along with other places. And the factories in America, because they were a little bit later to the dance, weren't able to meet the pricing that the English could. And so they wanted tariffs on the English imported goods. Well, for the South, that meant if we put a tariff on England, then England was going to put a tariff on cotton. And so the North would benefit from price leveling, but the South, again, would be damaged because the South would be having to pay the tariff and everything. So yes, slavery was the main driving course of the war, but it wasn't the only course. And so secession wound up basically opening up the can of worms of, we voluntarily joined this union, so we're voluntarily leaving the union. And the interesting part to me is that just about 80 years before, we had another civil war This one was a British Civil War because at that time most of the colonists considered themselves subjects of Britain. They were subjects of Britain. We were a British colony. We were subjects of the king. Yet we fought a war to gain independence. We said we no longer want to be part of Britain, and for some of the same reasons. And so we fought a war and gained our independence. And in a lot of ways, that's what the South did. The South said we no longer want to be a part of the United States of America, and so we're leaving because all the states are considered sovereign, and they're voluntarily part of this union. But President Lincoln and the North didn't see it that way. And a lot of the reason was economics. So that's a time when the main driving force of a war was not an honorable one. It's not a good one, but there were legitimate concerns. There were legitimate issues driving that secession as well. And sometimes we just latch onto the wrong one. And that's a lot of what happened for the Civil War, because, the idea of one person owning another person as cattle and labor, that's not, I don't think, well, obviously there are people who agree that that's a good thing, but I'm not one of them. But, Sean says we got a good look of the CSS Jackson right up here. Look at this. There it is. Wow. Now, I want to show you how big this thing is. Look at this. All the way from up there, all the way down there. Look at that. Wow. Hold on one second. Overall length, 220 feet, 6 inches. The beam, which means the width of it, 57 feet 6 inches. It had an 8-foot draft, so 8 foot beneath the water line. It displaced about 2,000 tons. It had 4-inch iron plate backed with 2 feet of wood. It had 6 guns, 4 7-inch Brook rifles, and 2 6.4-inch Brook rifles. Now, what the rifles means is they were rifled cannon. And rifling is where you have the spiral grooves inside the barrel. What that does is it spins the projectile and it allows it to travel farther and straighter. And the proposed crew was 200 people. That is amazing. And wow. Anyway, I've kept you long enough today. Thank you all for joining me. Those of you who are watching and following along, I'm having a blast doing this, just because I'm just that big of a nerd. But I hope you're getting something out of it too. I hope it's at least mildly interesting for you. So anyway, until the next stop down the road, travelers, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.